Coming to Game Pass very soon indeed, Lies of P is a game that can really pull your strings right from the start. So here's some advice on how to stay alive during those tricky first few hours and beyond. Before we get into the specifics of the opening levels, let's lay down some basic bits of know-how that you'll need to survive in this steampunk Souls-like. We're talking about combat, weapons, Legion arms, and Krat itself. So if you've already played the demo or feel like you know Souls games, you can skip ahead to the time code on screen right now for more specific tips. Still here? Oh good, you'll have an advantage. If you love your Souls-likes, then you've probably got your dodge rolling down to a fine art. But I'm afraid you won't find much use for it in Lies of P. You can dodge attacks, sure, but the best route to success here is to get your blocking game down, and specifically to master a little mechanic known as the perfect guard. This mechanic works similarly to the perfect parries found in Sekiro, and it basically means that if you time your block with LB just right, they won't cost you loads of stamina. So if you learn an enemy's attack patterns and your reflexes are sharp enough, you can swat away all their attacks like Neo at the end of the Matrix, or attempt to anyway. But the best part is that if you pull off a perfect guard against an enemy a couple of times, it will actually break their weapon, massively reducing the amount of damage they are able to deal to you from then on. You'll also notice that you can actually gain health back if you attack enough in a short window after using it. So with Lies of P, aggression is often the best defense. Like a lot of Souls-likes, Lies of P gives players a full arsenal of weapons to choose from and build their playstyle around. It's worth experimenting with different kinds of light and heavy weapons to figure out whether you want to deal death by 1,000 cuts or with one very big thwack. But where things get really interesting is the mix and match aspect of Lies of P's weapon system, which lets you forge your own weapon by combining different handles and blades. These parts all have their own associated skills called Fable Arts, which offer a huge variety of boosts that are great for different situations. The Great Sword of Fate's handle, for example, lets you temporarily block all incoming attacks, which is ideal for when you're facing down a boss with that one attack combo that gets you every single time. While the Fire Axe Blade has a lovely slicing attack that's great for dicing enemies with killer blows. Whatever weapon you end up going with, don't forget to use your grinder with X between fights to keep it nice and sharp. Otherwise, it will be way less effective. Something else specific to Lies of P, the Legion arm that you're armed with, has all sorts of handy attachments that allow you to electrify your enemies or just punch them really, really hard. Once you've acquired a variety of Legion arms, you'll want to switch between them regularly because they're all good for different scenarios. For example, if you find yourself in that classic Souls-like situation where you're trying to make it from a checkpoint back to a boss fight, but you keep on getting ganked by gangs of enemies along the way, you can use the puppet string arm to haul them over to you one by one and make your way to the big fight in much better condition. Extra points if you yell, "Get over here," while you do it. Lies of P's broody Belle Epoque world is worth exploring just for how cool the whole place is, but that's not the only reward you'll get from putting in the extra legwork. Searching every nook and cranny will also allow you to scrounge up hidden moonstones, which you can then use to upgrade your weapons. From the starting areas alone, you can rustle up enough moonstones to get your weapons up to a +2. And at Xbox On, those are just the sort of numbies we like to see. So check out the second part of this video to see exactly where those moonstones are hiding. The other resource you really want to keep your eyes peeled for is quartz. As soon as you've got your puppety little mitts on some, you should hotfoot it back to Geppetto at Hotel Krat, so he can use it to upgrade your P organ, which in turn boosts Pinocchio's abilities. And if you're new to the brutal world of Souls-likes and are struggling early on, these upgrades are a great way to even the odds. Try increasing the number of pulse cells you've got to heal yourself with to see if that helps you stay alive a little bit longer.
Getting to grips with these basic mechanics is sure to help, but Lies of P is still Souls-like, and so it is still willing to absolutely wreck you from the start, as anyone who checked out the demo will be able to attest. So here are some more specific bits of advice for the early game to help keep Pinocchio in one piece. Oh, apart from the fact that you can't pet the cat. One of the first questions in any action RPG, Souls-like or otherwise, is which abilities you should focus on leveling up first. As previously mentioned, the P organ offers all kinds of ways to upgrade Pinocchio's abilities in exchange for quartz, but also any ergo you gain. That's this stuff here. You can also invest into 6 different stats for your character. Vitality is your health, vigor is your stamina, and capacity increases the amount of stuff you can carry without becoming over-encumbered. All pretty standard RPG-ish things which you can decide on how to prioritize. Then there's Advance, which boosts your Legion arms and throwable items, so you can also decide for yourself how much you want to focus on that. The last 2 stats are the ones we'd recommend putting some thought into right from the start, as they're closely tied to the sort of weapons you want to use. Heavier weapons like broadswords scale along with your motivity stat, while rapiers and other light ones scale with technique. So it's worth picking one of those to focus on in the early game rather than spreading your skill points around too much. But don't worry if that sounds limiting, because you can actually modify any weapon by finding the right crank. For example, you can tie a heavy weapon to your motivity stat instead by using a motivity crank on it. Keep an eye out for cranks wherever you go, and don't worry if you end up regretting your choices, because you can always use a balance crank to reset a weapon back to its original state. Once you've defeated a boss called the Flame King Fuoco, you'll be able to purchase one of each crank from Pulcinella. More on that in a bit. And you'll open up a whole new world of weapon workshopping possibilities. As we previously explained, it's well worth taking the time to round up all the hidden moonstones you can find lying around the early stages of the game to get your weapons nice and strong. When we move on to talking about the bosses you're going to fight, you'll see why. The first one can be found at the entrance to the Hotel Krat, over to the right hand side. It's basically just sitting there, and frankly it's doing a very poor job of being a hidden moonstone. The next one is over at the entrance to the Elysion Boulevard. Look for a sign that says Clements and you'll see a ladder standing next to it. Climb it, run all the way along the path you'll find up there and across the plank onto another rooftop. There you'll find another ladder taking you back down to the street. The moonstone is waiting for you over to the right. There are 3 more to be found inside the house on Elysion Boulevard. Near the Stargazer, there's another of those plank bridges for you to cross, but if you jump off of it instead, you'll find an area containing both moonstones and a whole bunch of bad guys. You win some, you lose some, I guess. The third Elysion Boulevard one is found by going back to that same bridge but turning right rather than crossing it, and following that path until you come across a sparkly red butterfly. Beat the heck out of the thing and claim the moonstone as your prize. The portion of the game covered in the demo contains 1 more hidden moonstone, but you won't have to track it down, you'll just have to defeat the game's second boss, Mad Donkey, which is actually a lot easier said than done. Like any good Souls-like, Lies of P throws formidable boss fights at the player right from the off. It has absolutely no mercy, but we do. So here are a few pointers for these early battles. The Parade Master is the boss of the Krat Central Station area, so you'll be encountering him really early on too. Probably earlier than you would have preferred actually. The key to taking him down is to keep your distance until he does his dash attack. At that point you want to rush in and dodge the slash or jab that he follows it up with, before unleashing a nice heavy attack combo of your own. Get away from him nice and quickly afterwards to avoid his next move, and remember that his weapon has a lot more range during the second phase, so you'll need to be extra quick about making your escape. Next up is the Mad Donkey, who's over in the Elysion Boulevard just waiting for players to make an ass of themselves. True to his name, Mad Donkey swings his weapons around like an absolute lunatic, so your best bet is to wait for an especially wild attack, like his big, slow overhead one, and then jump in for a rear fatal attack. The last boss we got to square up to in the demo was the Scrapped Watchman, who's basically a supersized version of the policeman puppets that you've been practicing on. However, he hits a whole lot harder and deals electrical damage too, so caution is the watchword here. Ideally, wait for his jumping attack before making your move. He takes ages to recover after it, so you can get in a good 4 or maybe 5 attacks in the meantime. During his second phase, the Watchman becomes fully electrified, so keep your eyes peeled for any sparks on the ground, as these indicate that spots are about to be struck by lightning. And you know what happens to a Pinocchio that gets struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to anything else. Finally, the Flame King Fuoco is one that demo players didn't get to cross swords with, and he's a bit of a doozy, so here's how to stop the whole fight from going up in flames. Fuoco's melee moves can sometimes knock down the big pipes around the room, which can provide you with the cover from his massive AoE fire attack. When you hit the second phase of this boss fight, Fuoco will start chucking fireballs and oil at you. The important thing to remember here is that oil will lie on the floor afterwards, and if any of Fuoco's fire ignites it, they will deal massive damage, so watch your step. The world of Lies of P is a beautiful yet punishing place, even when you've got your wits about you. But these hints should help when it comes to Game Pass, and feel free to fire any tips you've picked up from the demo down in the comments.